Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Spittin Facts. I'm Ethan Spazarski.
I'm Joey Priano.
And we are here excited to join you as an exciting yet sad time in the sports world for a lot of sports have come to an end for all their seasons, except for baseball. Basketball, hockey, football, 3 of the top 4 sports are done for their respective seasons, which is a sad time. However, it is a very exciting time because it gives us time to plan and also look back on some of the great stuff that we've seen so far.
Yeah, and it was a great run while we got to watch both sports. The NBA and NHL playoffs both were very entertaining, very fun to watch. Now we get to talk about MLB still coming up on the All-Star break. We still have NFL off-season things, deals being done there, and then eventually the start of all this back up, and at some point we'll get all 4 sports at once. So although it has come to an end, it was fun while it lasted, and it will be back.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, no, that time, especially when just around school starts, when all those sports collectively come back together, it's a very exciting time. So the wait is definitely worth it. But let's stop being sad and look again at what we said was very exciting. The NBA and NHL playoffs both played pretty much at the exact same time. The NBA did get a little bit of a head start, but 2 South Florida teams involved in the respective championship series, and they did not disappoint. However, no dice for either Florida teams, both winners being not from Florida. Joey, we talked about it on the side by ourselves before, but kind of just give an update of like what we were talking about.
Yeah, so the Denver Nuggets won in 5 games over the Miami Heat, and the Florida Panthers lost to the Vegas Golden Knights also in 5 games. It was one of the more, on both sides, in both sports, it was one of the more boring finals I think we've had. I feel like these always align pretty closely, and I feel like we haven't had both end in 5 or earlier games. So a little bit quicker, a little bit more dominant, a little bit more of us knowing, okay, well, this team's just clearly the better team. Still fun to watch, of course, fun to see where they came from. Congratulations to the Florida Panthers and the Miami Heat, both 8 seeds, both barely making it in. The Miami Heat, of course, losing that first play-in game and playing a you're in or you're out game to win, and then making that run. Beating the Bucks, the overall 1 seed in the first round. And we have the Florida Panthers beating the number 1 overall Bruins. So great runs by both teams. Of course, neither one could close it out in the end, but great runs by both. And then obviously congratulations to the Denver Nuggets and the Golden Knights for showing that they are truly the best team in their sport.
Both teams, fun fact, and it's kind of it's not something unknown, but both teams that won their championships, they're the first championships that each team has won in franchise history. For the Nuggets, they've been a part of the NBA for 47 years. And this is their first NBA Finals win. And then for the Golden Knights, they've only been in the NHL for 6 years, and they were able to get the Lombardi. I'm gonna say Lombardi Trophy. That's not right. They were able to get Lord Stanley, the Stanley Cup, and raise it out there in Vegas. So excellent stuff. We're gonna break down both sides, but first we will start with, of course, the NBA Finals here, as we're gonna show you just again. The Denver Nuggets winning and defeating the Miami Heat in 5 games. A fairly dominant contest by the Nuggets. Only game 2, I think, genuinely was where it was like really close and Miami was able to hold out a solid lead at times. But Denver, without a doubt, highly deserving. What we could say what should have been the 3-time MVP, Mr. Jokic himself, really star-studded out. Even Jamal Murray, and we'll get into some of their stats again, but overall, Joey, I understand, like you said, it wasn't exciting because, only 5 games is kind of sad. Usually you like to see a series go 6 or obviously 7 games, force everybody to, watch as long as they can and keep the finals and energy going. But overall, we even said, like, this Denver Nuggets team was probably going to win either way. We definitely saw the domination they had during the year. What did you see overall in the year from this Nuggets team that really helped you come to that conclusion?
I think that as much as people want to vouch for, okay, well, Joel Embiid should have been the MVP, he had a great year, all this stuff. Nikola Jokic proved that he should have been 3-time MVP in a row. He dominated this entire playoffs. He never slowed down. If he slowed down even a barely little bit, Jamal Murray was there to pick him back up. And same thing happened in the playoffs. In the finals, he averaged 30 points a game. And he is putting up, he's putting up 12 rebounds a game. He's an 8 assists a game. He's just going crazy. He had a great playoffs. He had a great finals. overall as a whole showed that he's the most dominant player in the league. And in the NBA, you can really ride behind one person. Jamal Murray had a great playoffs. He doesn't get as much hype as many people because he is, of course, behind the Joker. But yeah, great playoffs for the Nuggets. They proved why they were the best team and should have been the 1 seed. And yeah, nobody really had a doubt. As soon as they went up 2-1, it was like, okay, well, that's kind of it.
I mean, that's very true. And again, we'll throw up the graphic just in case you didn't hear or want to actually see it. Yeah, both guys playing 20 games in the playoffs so far. These are their playoff stats this year. 20 games each. Both had over 25 points a game. The rebound game definitely goes to Jokic there. And assists are both pretty high for both men. Obviously, Jokic is definitely that number one guy. But Jamal Murray, like you mentioned before, he does not get as much love as the Joker. I think it's mainly because of just how dominant he is and how popular he's gotten over especially recently over Jamal Murray. But Jamal Murray is definitely a key factor and a key number 2 guy to this team. And I think if you don't have those number 2, number 3 guys, I get it. It's definitely the NBA can be a one-person team. I don't think you can win championships with just one person. So supporting cast is very crucial to our team.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things of that supporting cast, who was going to originally be seen as the 6th guy on the Nuggets, who proved that he's a starter every day, Aaron Gordon, who his comeback from injuries, had a really tough time to get to this spot, and now finally in a finals. In the finals itself, averaging 14 points a game, averaging 7.5 rebounds and 3 assists. He came into the playoffs looking like he was going to be their bench guy, their veteran guy who's been around for a while, and really proved why he should be a starter and really complemented well with Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic.
Oh, yeah, he's definitely that drive in the paint kind of guy. It's a lot of fun to watch him dunk. Obviously, he won the dunk contest a few years back. He's posted a few guys this year, definitely on social media, if you're able to see that or follow up on anything on Instagram especially. But is a nice compliment to that top 2 supporting guys. And the Denver Nuggets, again, a dominant team throughout pretty much the entire year. And then in the playoffs, they dominated. Their first loss came at Game 2 in the NBA Finals for the postseason. That was their first loss all postseason, which was crazy to think about. Up until that point, they were 9-0 at home during the postseason. That's an excellent thing. And, home court advantage, home field, home ice advantage is very crucial. And I think that was also another factor towards the dominant Nuggets run that they had so far in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think another thing that plays a factor is that the Heat worked really hard to get here and had a lot of long series, barely beat out the Celtics. And I think that the Nuggets would have done the exact same thing to the Heat as they would have done to the Celtics had they won. And although we'll talk about a little bit in hockey, that was kind of the opposite. I feel like momentum in hockey has a lot more impact than it does in basketball because you're skating and how draining that is on a person. And I think that in NBA, when you do have time to rest and you've got all this time and you've got this prep and you really know what you're going to see, I think that it really works out well for them. And so I think that having all that rest versus a tired Heat team who had been putting all their effort into the Celtics, it's hard to bounce back as the Heat. But I think that the Nuggets were just well prepared. They outworked them in every game except for the one that the Heat won. And their head coach said it after the game. They said, we weren't good enough. We shouldn't have won game 1. We didn't play well enough. We need to be better. Now we're going to go to Miami. We need to be better. We have to dominate them because we are the better team. And they went and they showed exactly that. And so just to see that team's resilience and come back and be good in the locker room really proves why they are the best team in the NBA.
Oh, there's no question about it. An exciting time for a lot of these players. I mean, for a lot of guys, they win a national championship, whether they go to Kansas, Duke, North Carolina, just name some of the powerhouses in college basketball. Then you get to the NBA, and it's like, you think you've reached the pinnacle of everything, and some guys just get lucky, or not get lucky, but, you get drafted by the right team, put in the right rotation, and you're able to win an NBA title. It's exciting. A lot of guys well-deserving on both sides. But to talk about the Miami Heat, which there are 2 sides to this chess match that we witnessed. And while the Miami Heat didn't win, they still have definitely those 2 guys that went through everything to get them there. And up until the finals, I think, and I said this to you the other day, I think Jimmy Butler's MVP of the playoffs up until the NBA finals started. I think that's a fair take. So,
yeah.
I want to get yours on it as well.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo are a great 1-2 and played incredibly in this playoffs. However, I feel like that's kind of one of the big reasons, along with Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin, why they didn't win this series. So in the conference finals, Jimmy Butler averaged 25, 7.5, and 6. And in the finals, he averaged 21.5, 5 or 4.5 and 6 also. So his stats went down. Caleb Martin averaged 7 points in the finals, and in the conference finals he averaged almost 20. Bam Adebayo is kind of the only consistent player who stayed up there, and he even went he went up. He went from 15 points up to 21 points. He took over. He really drove the series and is one of the reasons they won game 2. But yeah, everybody else on that Heat team kind of fell off, and it showed that they were tired, but they really just didn't. Their third and fourth and fifth guys who come up and are really clutch couldn't do that against the Heat, and I think that against the Nuggets, excuse me. And I think one of the main reasons behind that is the Nuggets are such a good team defensively, and they're so smart with obviously Jokic and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Aaron Gordon and defensive style players like that. It just, they couldn't get the ball rolling. They couldn't hit threes, and that was a big factor into why they could only get it to 5 games.
Supporting cast, that's what I said before, and I stand by it again. I mean, Bam Adebayo, he was definitely the biggest step up. I think we can agree. You read the stats and you watch the finals enough, you can agree with that. They did play more games than the Denver Nuggets, and I honestly think they obviously had to fight more to get where they are. And again, there is credit for that. However, you didn't win the championship, so you think, well, was it really worth it? And I mean, it goes to prove that Bam Adebayo continuing to cement that he is definitely a top star guy in a lot of these teams. And I guess technically you can say he's the number 2 guy here in Miami because of Jimmy's here. But on a lot of these, I would probably say on a lot of these teams, Bam would definitely be a number 1 guy. He raised his stats up in the final stats for each of these guys in the playoffs. Jimmy had just a hair under 27 and just a hair under 18 for Bam. Bam averaged just about 10 rebounds a game, while Jimmy had almost 7. And then assists, again, both pretty much almost towards a whole numbers. So basically 6 assists a game for Jimmy and 4 for Bam. So these guys really getting after it. I think the only smudge mark on here would be the field goal percentage. And almost 50% isn't bad, but it definitely could be better from his top guys. So I think between not having a supporting cast, not being, and this is going to sound silly, but not hitting your shots. You need to be able to at least hit 50% of your shots to even be considered into the game. So I think that's a very large reason of why the Miami Heat didn't win the finals.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you that Bam would be a number 1 guy on a lot of teams. He's going to be an all-star for the next couple years. Him and Butler have a great connection. And I think one of the reasons that both of them are so good and would be number 1 on teams is because they're very different style of players that work well together. Bam, he's different from Jokic in the way that they're both centers, but Bam's the one that gets the ball at the point. So it's almost like he's a point guard for a lot of it, but he's not going to shoot from there. He's the one looking around, looking for the pass, and then going to the hoop, while Jokic is the one starting under the hoop. And I think that Jimmy Butler not having to fill that role and be the point guard gives him opportunities to almost act like a shooting guard, moving around the arc, looking for opportunities. And so when I think you've got Bam as such a diverse player who can lead from the point, doing what he does, I think that that's a number 1 that you'd love to have on your team, and many guys are going to want in the future.
Exactly. Now, great stuff out of the NBA Finals again. I'm sure everybody would want it to go longer, but nonetheless, congratulations again to the Denver Nuggets and the Miami Heat. Congratulations to the NBA with everything they were able to do this season. Next season sure to be interesting. Starting out with the breaking news of yesterday or today, either way, recently, if John Morant's going to be missing the first 25 games of the year. That should be interesting, see how they handle it. It's going to be interesting to see, will Jason Tatum continue to be as productive for the Celtics, or are we going to see a different version of him? So many questions and exciting questions for the upcoming year. I know I'm going to be excited to watch, and I'm sure you are too.
Yeah, we've got the NBA draft coming up, I think a week from yesterday. We've got a lot of new things coming up. We've got a lot of fun rookies that are going to be able to take the series or the season by storm. A lot of guys that we don't know. Victor Wembanyama coming overseas, the undisputed first overall pick. Yeah, we've got a lot look forward to a lot of signings, trade deadline, or not trade deadline, free agency opening up and a lot of things. So, yeah, should be a fun offseason, and I can't wait for the season to start back up. There's going to be a lot of big names in a lot of different places. Guys like Fred VanVleet just said that he's not coming back to Toronto. They're going to try and trade him.
They offered him basically $23 million.
Yeah, and he was like, "I'm not playing for you anymore."
No.
Yeah,
should be. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, a lot of guys moving around, and it's love to see new guys on new teams. But yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, and it's funny. One of the sports that doesn't get a lot of credit. It is not, and believe it or not, it is the sixth. With raising money and with all the net worth of each league, it is ranked sixth among all sports. The NHL has pretty much the shortest the shortest off-season window. Excuse me. That I think I've seen in pretty much any sport. It's basically 2.5 months, and then we're back on the grind with hockey. But we got it. I said we weren't going to talk about it again, but you know what? I lied so well. I'm okay with talking about it again. The Vegas Golden Knights defying the odds and winning the Stanley Cup. Congratulations. As mentioned before, they were only in their 6th season as an entire franchise, and I think what Bruce Cassidy did in start to Game 5 was brilliant. Start the original 6 in their cup clinching game, able to get it done. Mm-hmm. I think that's so worth it, and that led off with the guys, and it hit well with all of them. All the original 6 guys where they were honored. Like, hey, that was one great gesture by our great coach. And I showed you before, they hired Bruce Cassidy on June 13th of 2022 after the Bruins fired him, and then they won the Cup on June 14th. Mm-hmm. So 366 days later, they win the Stanley Cup. And that just goes to show that, Vegas is doing something right. 6 years. It only took 6 years. This is their second Cup final run, too. And so they're definitely going in the right direction. Vegas is an excellent hockey town. We've seen it before. They really know how to make an electric series electric. So, awesomeness. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I wish it would have went longer. However, a lot of guys were playing with a lot of bad injuries, and that just goes to show you these hockey guys are very, very tough.
Yeah, well, and we didn't know any of them. We thought Tkachuk was going to play, and then they said he wasn't going to play, and it's like, well, he must have something really serious to keep Matthew Tkachuk off the ice, who's the leader of this team, and then he could be out 3 months. We've got a lot of different injuries. Montour, Mark Stone, these guys fight, and you don't know it because everything's listed as upper body or lower body injury. That's all we get because it's so easy to get hurt in NHL and to get targeted and not see it that they really don't disclose what's going on. So then the series ends and everyone's like, okay, it's over. And then all these injuries start flooding in months and months of being out.
Gudis was playing with a high ankle sprain.
Yeah, and you're skating for an entire game.
Brandon Montour's playing with broken bones.
Yeah.
Aaron Ekblad was. I know that for a fact. I don't want to. Definitely, you can look it up. Wherever your NHL media outlets are, where they feed out information, they should all be there. But Mark Stone potentially could be out for longer term, so he could miss the beginning of the next season.
This could have been his last game.
This potentially could have been his last game.
He had a hat trick.
Exactly.
And he was so hurt during that whole game.
Yeah, one way to go out.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, a lot of these guys playing through injuries, mainly the Florida Panthers, but I think with Paul Maurice, what I enjoyed the most was the tip of the cap he gave to his team. He said, look, we didn't win. People ask, why'd you lose the games? And he's like, well, they scored more goals than we did. Mm-hmm. He's a very realistic, honest guy, but something else, he gives a lot of credit. He said, hey, these guys gave everything they had. They didn't stop. He goes, this team is great. I'm very proud of them. And that was definitely a heartwarming moment because, he's not afraid to call his players out on the ice. Some of the word language he's used I can't repeat, but it's like, wow, he just said it. He didn't even hold back. So obviously congratulations to the Florida Panthers as well for making it so far. But I think it's fair to start talking about some of these player stats, and I think the first player we want to talk about is the Conn Smythe winner, the second undrafted player to ever win the Conn Smythe. He's a part of elite company because the only guy who was undrafted and won the Conn Smythe. Wayne Gretzky. Yep. And they talked about it on TNT, and he was like, "Oh, hey, yeah, that's right. I was part of that." But yeah, Jonathan Marchessault, without a doubt, deserving, and we'll show you some of his stats so far in the playoffs. Going into the playoffs right there, 22 games played. He had 25 points. He only had, for a series that had so many penalties and and I mean, he only had 14 in the entire playoffs, so it shows he was a clean player. He was getting pucks to the net. He was creating chances. I mean, Chandler Stevenson, I think, is the only other guy that on top of my head I could think that was doing the exact same play as Jonathan Marchessault. Not to take anything away from anybody else, but it's funny, and I saw this the other day. Of the top 5 points scored, 4 of the 5 are obviously Vegas Golden Knights and Florida Panthers. Number 5 is still Rope Hintz from the All-Stars. He got eliminated literally a whole round ago, 5 games later, and he's still in the top 5. I thought that was impressive. But these guys came out. Jack Eichel's pretty much is the only other guy that had more points than he did on the Vegas Golden Knights. But Jonathan Marchessault, what a heck of a playoffs for him.
Yeah, he had a great stretch. He had 13 goals, 12 assists, and it was really even throughout the whole thing. I mean, the top 4 leaders in points for Vegas are separated by 6 points, and the top 3 are separated by 2 points. I mean, I think that Marchessault was the right decision for Conn Smythe, because I think it was kind of a coin toss between him and Eichel. Eichel, 26 points. He had 6 goals, but he had 20 assists. Marchessault, 13 goals, 12 assists. So they gave it to him for the goals. It was probably the right call. One of the original 6.
Point streaks. I mean, he had I'm pretty sure, a 5 or 6 game goal streak. He had like a 9 or 10 game point streak. He scored overtime winners. Jonathan Marchessault was definitely the deserving party. Not to say that, a Jack Eichel, Adin Hill were not reasonable candidates. I think it's funny. I mentioned before, it's not stereotypical that you see a goaltender up for a Conn Smythe. Mm-hmm. There have been goaltenders to win it before, but there haven't, recently. That's not how it works. But, I mean, Adin Hill played exceptional, too, if we're going to talk about it, along with Jack Eichel, just to, pull up his stats here real quick. What else he was able to do. I mean, 16 games played. He started 14 of them. He started late. He missed the first 3 games because, Chris Brisebois started the game. He gets hurt. And then he gets put in. He had a .217 goals against average. He had basically a 93% save percentage. I mean,
and he had 2 shutouts.
He had 2 shutouts. Yeah. And Adin Hill played excellent. Florida gave him. There were times where Florida gave a lot of grief. Where you could tell the Panthers gave a little more energy. To start Game 5 in the first 10 minutes, Florida came out and they gave everything they had towards the Vegas Golden Knights, and they forced Adin Hill to be great.
And he was.
And he played great. There's no doubt about it. Personally, I really enjoyed watching all these players play and all the the different points and the techniques. I think Mark Stone as a captain was an excellent choice now because they started out and when they said he was going to be the first captain, I was like, oh, all right. I mean, he had a great career so far, but I didn't know why they gave it to an original player. But I think Mark Stone definitely cemented why he was the captain and leader of this group. Everyone speaks so highly of him and his leadership and his ability to play. I thought the first goal he scored in the night in Game 5 was exceptional. He just gets right up to the crease, settles the puck down, and he just shot it. Simple, nothing crazy, no crazy stick handles, spin, twists, or anything. It was amazing. And then the next night, and later that night, they celebrate with their families and they go out. Adin Hill's in a club singing. It's just so awesome to see, they're finally able to relax and have a little fun after spending just so much time focusing on this championship.
Yeah, and it was hard fought. Jack Eichel got beat up in that series, and he continued to play well, but multiple times rushed off to the locker room like, uh-oh.
Twice.
Twice we were like, uh-oh, is he okay? He got hit in the face by Marchessault with a puck. He got destroyed by Matthew Tkachuk right up high, and it was a very clean hit, but just absolutely blew him up. So he got beat up in this series and proved why he is one of the best players on this team. Wanted out of Buffalo so bad. And I love the Sabres, but they weren't giving him what he wanted. He wanted more money. He wanted to win. That was his big thing. He wanted to win, and that wasn't going to happen with the Sabres. No. Goes over to Vegas, of course, wins the Cup, gets his full circle moment. And just what a leader. Mark Stone definitely had to influence him. I mean, Jack Eichel, he's a young guy. He's got a lot of time left. But yeah, I think he'll be on this Vegas team for a whole bunch of years to come. And note, Vegas missed the playoffs last year. I mean, the Bruce Cassidy sign, everyone was like, okay, well, that's a little bit weird. Why Boston let him go? And then everyone thought that Boston won that. They scored the most, or they got the most points in NHL history. They were like, okay, well, Boston won that deal. But Bruce Cassidy took Vegas from not making the playoffs to winning the Stanley Cup in a year and a day. Mm-hmm. he showed why he is one of the best coaches in the NHL, and it looked like both sides win. But ultimately, even though the Bruins had the most points in the season, they ended up losing.
Exactly.
They could have used Bruce Cassidy.
And it's funny, Bruce Cassidy got there. Of course, he did lose, and he's been to 2 Stanley Cup Finals before this. He lost both. The most famous one, I think we could agree, was whenever they lose to Game 7. Boston lost to Game 7 against St. Louis in Boston. They fire him. To me, it didn't make sense because I'm like, Bruce Cassidy's an exceptional coach here. The players respond to him well. He's a great leader. He's a great understander of the game. He gets sent off. He signs with Vegas. And, again, a year and a day later, they're Stanley Cup champions. Rightfully so. It definitely makes sense. I was very happy with the winner. And it's funny, I had Boston and Vegas in the Stanley Cup final when Boston got eliminated because my East, as we mentioned before, we saw it.
Everybody's East was not good.
If you want to see ours specifically, go back an episode, our last episode, we talked about the Stanley Cup final. You can see our hits and misses. My West remained perfect.
Only look at Ethan's. Don't look at my hits and misses.
West
we don't need to talk about my Final Four prediction. We don't need to talk about that.
My West remained perfect. I hate bringing it up, but I'm really proud of that. The East is atrocious. I only got one series right out of all of the series that could have happened, and then the West remained perfect. So I think just for me, Vegas proved. I was like, you know what? I was just really scared of this Vegas team. They might not be the best overall, but they were definitely the best in the West, and I think they showed that again. They run a pretty dominant first 2 games. Game 3s where things games 3 and 4 got interesting once you head down to South Florida, and I think it's funny. And also, let's give credit, too, to the people who run, the operations out there, because you set up the court, then you go set up the ice, set up the court, set up the ice. Back and forth for 4 days in a row. It must be exhausting for that staff, but they did an excellent job. South Florida came out and represented hard. So, again, congratulations to all the teams. Again, not like they're going to see this, but, it's if you just have a heart and a brain, you can understand, how much goes into this. So the appreciation we have for the sports and everyone else does is definitely worth noting there. I think these finals, as mentioned before, the only thing that could have made them better was if they went on longer. But that's also kind of that's nitpicking out of fact. But I think talent-wise, we were met with everything.
We got 2 great teams. We got the team that everyone thought was going to win, and then we got the underdog that everyone was super happy to be there. And in the end of the day, we got the 2 dominant teams that won. But yeah, great to see it. You love the underdog story, even though if it didn't pan out. And yeah, like you said, you want it to go to Game 7, especially when you don't have your team there. You've got 2 teams that you like on both sides. I like all 4 of the teams that were in these finals, and you want to see more because you love the sport. But ultimately, the better team won and showed why they're the best, and it's still great to see.
Exactly, completely agree. And as we mentioned, that is going to be where we wrap up here today. Again, for not as the longest episode we've ever produced. I know we've gone over an hour before because we're just those guys.
We love talking about it.
We're those guys, but nonetheless, that is going to wrap up here for today's episode. Again, as you see it here on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe, comment to see if anything you want to talk about, agree or disagree with our takes, anything. We support all notions towards what people want to hear about. So we thank you again for tuning in. With next episode, we'll be heading back to the grass and dirt diamond as we begin to look over on the NL side of things. We talked about the AL a few episodes ago. We'll talk about the NL as we get closer to the All-Star break. But as always, Joey, do you have anything else to say or add?
No, I can't wait for NHL and NFL or NBA to start back up. I miss it, but I can't wait.
Exactly. Who would have thought? Baseball and the USFL are the only sports on right now.
And we won't be talking about the USFL.
Unfortunately, no. But there's a chance I'll be real, I might tune on a game or two because I miss football a lot. But
if that's what I have to watch football, that's what I'll watch.
It's a sacrifice we're willing to make. Acting like we're taking one for the team.
Yeah.
But either way, we appreciate everyone tuning in. As always, I'm Ethan Spazarski.
And I'm Joey Priano.
This has been Spittin' Facts. This has been Spittin' Facts. We appreciate all that you listen and everything, and we'll see you guys next time. We'll catch you later. Bye.